shut up and start the show.
I'm ready to start, Mr. D. Nimmin. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm ready to get started, too. We've got 10 mistakes that are keeping your channel small.
Yeah. Well, if you went through my list, I bet you there's probably 15 that I've been able to do just on the today alone. But
yeah. We wrote the book on this.
This is experience speaking here today, folks. So listen, hey, we want to welcome you back to our show. We were not on last month. We took a little hiatus, and we are now here with our new sponsor on the Tube Spanner channel. Big shout out to Tube Spanner for having us on and sponsoring our show. This is going to be our new home. So this is where you'll be able to find us every month here on the Tube Spanner channel. If you don't know what Tube Spanner is, it's a new tool that's in beta development that's right now available that you can go in and actually sign up for a free account and start testing out some of the features as we speak. It's going to be one of the coolest tools out there. We are loving where it's heading, and I can't wait till this thing has its official launch because it's going to be a monster. That's good.
It's coming soon, I believe. It's coming soon. Yeah.
Very soon. Very soon.
Real
so listen,
for that.
D, we were talking about the kind of things that we always try to come up with a show that will provide value to the YouTube content creators out there that we talk to every single day, right? Mm-hmm. And we started talking about, we're always trying to find something that really could bring value to help them progress on the platform. That's been the goal of the show, helping content creators understand and perform well on the platform of YouTube. So today we were thinking about, there's so many mistakes that any YouTube content creator can make. And sometimes the idea of, working smarter, not harder, not that YouTube isn't hard work, but the idea of making sure that all the effort you put into YouTube, and it takes a lot of effort, is focused on the right things so you don't end up spending a lot of time spinning your wheels, is something that we kind of said, wow, we should really get down to the nitty gritty and come up with like the top 10 mistakes that really explain to YouTubers what they should be avoiding or what they should be doing instead to make sure that they can start growing their channels more rapidly. And we have our list today. I think we got a good list. What do you think?
We do have a good list, and I can say that I'm probably guilty of every one of these. And probably everyone in here at some point in their journey has done a good handful of these, if not all of them. So
that's true. So
if
I've done a couple of them. I've done some twice. I'll be honest. I went back and revisited.
Make sure that you're not doing them now. Yeah, so if you're in the chat right now or you're watching this on the replay and you're stuck in the mud and you're like, my channel is simply not growing, we're going to start in with number one right now, talking about, and you've probably heard a lot of these, but you might not have heard them all, and we're gonna lay them out for you, starting with number one. Dan, you want to take away number one and let them know one thing they could be doing wrong that's slowing their channel growth?
We're going to start big here. I think the single biggest mistake that small creators make is they don't develop a value proposition. And a value proposition on YouTube is a very simple idea, but sometimes it's tough to get your head wrapped around. A value proposition is your ability in a single short sentence to be able to explain to the viewer three basic principles: what your channel's about, the niche, who the target audience is, not demographics, not like, white men between the age of 30. No, we're talking about the target audience. What does that person look like? What is that? How could you describe the person you're trying to reach? What are the interests that you share in common? And the third thing is, why would that person watch your channel, not just as opposed to other similar types of channels to yours, but anything that they might get served in a viewing session, because your content can go up against any host of different types of channels that might be served to that viewer based on their viewing habits. So those three simple things are super important. And a lot of times I'll talk to creators and I'll say like, hey, what's your value proposition? And they go, oh, I'm a gaming channel.
Right.
Or I'm a cooking channel, right? You go, that's not a value proposition. Saying I'm a cooking channel that's not a value proposition, that's a niche, right? Mm-hmm. So a value proposition for a cooking channel would be, I help busy parents figure out how to make simple meals in under 30 minutes. And you go, well, now that's a value proposition for a cooking channel. D, if I were to ask you, what's your value proposition? What would you tell me?
I would say I help mobile content creators succeed on YouTube. But for my cooking channel, it would be I help single males not kill themselves in the kitchen.
Nice skills. Nice skills right there.
Nice skills right there.
But you see what D did right there when he was talking about, he says, he helps mobile content. He says right in there, mobile content creators. You know that he's into content creation. That's his niche. Who's the target audience member is a mobile content creator, someone who would be using their mobile devices to create content or grow their YouTube channels. And he helps them do that more effectively. So that all in that one simple sentence, you can say, I know what D does. That's a value proposition. He just didn't say, I talk about phones and stuff,
Right.
Very specific so that all bases were covered. So that value prop is hugely important. And if there were anything that you could do today, go home, sit, with the rest of the noise of your house off, turn off the TVs, turn all the other things off, and just think about what is the perfect value proposition. It explains to the viewer your niche, who the target audience is, and why they should watch your channel, and dial that in, because it will help you make every other decision on your channel. What your channel art should look like, what your thumbnail should look like, what kind of titles and topics you should be going for, what the playlist might be written like, and how they should be put together. Get that right, the rest starts to become infinitely easier. What do you think, Dave?
I think one of the most difficult parts of that is answering the question, and everyone can do it in here. And it would be great to see everybody write this out in the chat right now. Why someone would watch your channel? I think that's a really difficult thing to answer, because you can't just say because I make good videos. It's got to go deeper than that. It has to be more personal to the viewer than that. For me, because I do help mobile content creators succeed on YouTube, you should watch my videos. You should become part of my community, because every piece of content that I add on my channel is there to serve you, the mobile content creator who wants to succeed on YouTube. Right? So that's my why in terms of why you should watch my content. Isn't because I just throw up a couple of random videos that are going to help you. It's that I've made my channel a destination for someone who needs that help. So all the videos that you click on are going to help you do exactly what it is that you want to do. Now, I also want to note that your value proposition doesn't mean that you have to help people, right? Daniel and I both used examples here about he helps this, I help that. It could do, entertainment. You could be there to make people laugh. You could be there, you might be a filmmaker. You might be a vlogger. There's all sorts of different styles. So don't think that your value proposition means that you have to help people, though that is the fastest way to growth. I think if you want to step on the gas and make things move faster, help people solve problems, elevate people, inspire people, lift them up, help them go through their pain points. I think that's definitely the fastest way to grow. But you don't have to help people. You just have to come up with a clear statement to let people know what your channel is about and how it can help them. Right? Because how your channel helps them, or how your content entertains them or helps them or makes them laugh or whatever, that's really what matters.
Right. There's a word we use that's called, they use satisfy. Some people go satisfy, do people enjoy your content? Some people make channels that you wouldn't necessarily, the content is enjoyable, but it satisfies. It does the thing, because if you're showing someone how to swap a alternator in a, 76, VW Bug or something, that's not necessarily something you're gonna be like, man, that was so enjoyable. They just wanted the information. They needed to learn how to do it. Did it satisfy that need? And did the video do that? Perfect. And if they were just watching a music channel and they just wanted to hear some really cool hip hop beats that they could relax to around the house, if your channel does that really effectively, then it satisfies the needs of the viewers. So that's really what it is. Less about enjoyment, more about satisfaction.
So let's take a music channel, for example. So because I love, when I'm working, finding a live stream or a long playlist for music channels and putting it on and getting to work. So if you have a music channel, and let's say you focus on synthwave, right? 80s synthwave type songs, you could have your channel art, put something together, something that looks synthwave, something that looks retro wave, something that looks like it's back from the future or from Tron or something like that. And it could just simply be, say you've got a 24-hour live stream, or it could be like 24-hour live stream of 1980s synth pop, just to let the viewer know exactly what's going on with your channel, and make sure, if that's what you tell them your channel's about, make sure that's what you're actually uploading.
Well, stay right here, because that's the number 2 point that we want to talk about today. Is one of the biggest mistakes that we both think that creators make is the messaging. Now, messaging, run with this, D. What do we mean when we talk about messaging?
Well, messaging is in alignment with the value proposition, right? So if you tell somebody that you take my channel, for example, I help mobile content creators succeed on YouTube. I want to make sure that everything I do on my channel, right, from my thumbnails, to my value proposition, to the topics, to the titles, to my descriptions, to every single thing on my channel, everything is gonna lean into that value proposition. I wanna make sure that every piece of content that I upload is in alignment with that value proposition to make sure that my messaging is clear, that I help mobile content creators succeed on YouTube. And anytime that I've deviated from that, my channel usually suffers, or that particular video usually suffers. There's been a few cases where they brought in an audience that I didn't necessarily want, but for the most part, if I deviate from that, it's not what people signed up for.
Yep. And that's true for everything, even simple things like your channel art. When I go to a lot of channels, I start looking right at the channel art, and they'll have like the name of the channel and then some weird images, and I'm looking at the channel art saying, without looking at anything else, do I know what this channel is about? Is the messaging clear? Can I read the value proposition right in the channel art and say, this tells me the name of the channel, the value it presents, why I'd want to watch? Is it all right there? And that's one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of times is bringing that value proposition into the messaging so every different aspect of the channel itself really represents that value prop. At a glance, I know that what the value proposition of this channel is. When I go to Dee's channel, I see immediately him holding up the phone, and he's talking about all the different apps and types of things and phone things that you can use to create content, edit content, create thumbnails. It's all right there, and it explains it. At a glance, you know what that channel is without even having heard what the value prop is, because the messaging is clear. And that's another thing we should talk about, because messaging is the idea of getting the value prop into all the different parts of your channel from the channel art on down. But there's another portion of that, Dee, that we talk about a lot, and we call it packaging. Packaging of something, which there's three big T's in packaging, and that is your topic, your thumbnail, and your title. Now, Dee, how do those three portions of your packaging work together? What is the kind of mistakes we see creators making with their packaging?
Well, first I want to say that what you just said previously about when you come to my channel without even knowing what my value proposition is, you get a good idea of what my channel is about because of the things that I put in my thumbnail, right? Because of the imagery that I'm using, you really don't even have to figure out what my channel proposition is about, because if you just go look at my video page, you can tell by the images that I'm using, the words that I'm using in my thumbnails, the topics and titles that I'm choosing, you get a good idea of what my channel is about. The important thing is, you want to make sure that when you're putting your thumbnails together, right? And I'm just going to talk about a little thumbnail tip here. A lot of people, especially when they're just getting started on YouTube, and you're just like, okay, I just want to stuff all this stuff into a thumbnail so everything is really clear. They tell us to make our thumbnails clear, and they put just a ton of word vomit into their thumbnail, and they just clutter it completely. Don't do that. Pick a couple of choice words, a couple target words, a couple of keywords or your keyword phrase, something that's really going to draw attention and speak to your audience, and use a really bold, simple font to do that. Some of the mistakes that people do, they're putting the thumbnails together, they're choosing the topics, and they're writing the titles, and it just doesn't speak to a particular audience. Right? Think about the viewers, because we talked about here in your value proposition, who is your target audience? So when you're crafting all of this stuff, when you're putting your title together, when you're putting your thumbnail together, when you're writing your description, when you're putting your playlist together, make sure that the packaging, the words you use, the imagery that you use speak directly to that target audience, so they know at a glance that video was made for them. And one of the biggest mistakes is people aren't doing that. They're not speaking to an audience. They're trying to please an algorithm instead of trying to speak to a person who's looking for your particular type of content.
That's huge. That's huge, because that's what we're talking about in each piece of that, of the packaging. When we talk about the topic, if your value proposition is clear, if you are that cooking channel that helps busy parents make quick dinners in under 20 minutes, then you should say, does the packaging say that? When I see a thumbnail, does that thumbnail scream, I help people make really fast recipes for dinner for their families? Does the title scream that? Does the topics that you're picking, are they true to the idea of finding recipes recipes that are quick and easy to make for those parents who are on the run, trying to get dinner cooked quickly when they come home from work for their parents. The titles, the topics, the way the thumbnails put together. We see a lot of people make these mistakes where thumbnails are a big one. We'll talk more about this in the future, but thumbnails are one, right? I mean, that's probably the first thing that's really going to win the click is that thumbnail. Before people read your title, they quickly start scrolling and they're looking for that thumbnail that grabs their attention. And as we were saying previously, the messaging, if the messaging is clear in your thumbnail, then you can actually really start to create some click-through rate and some growth, get people to actually, click your videos to try watching them to see what they're like, because that messaging needs to be clear. I see people that are like sticking their face in the video and in the thumbnail and saying, well, that I heard somewhere that faces should be in thumbnails because they do better, or they've got branding marks in there and they've got text and they're saying, well, I also heard the text helps, and they're stuffing their title in. They've got all these theories about what they're supposed to be doing with their thumbnails, but they become these cluttered messes that have no clear messaging. If you're making a video teaching someone how to make a 20-minute chicken dinner recipe, then all I want to see in that thumbnail is a really good-looking chicken dinner that I can make in 20 minutes. I want to see that. A picture is worth 1,000 words. You don't have to drown that picture in more words to get it to explain what that video might be about. So always, the first thing you want to think about there is in that packaging, think about the messaging. Is it clear? Is it easy for the viewer to understand what this video might be about at a glance? If you can do that, then you've got some solid packaging.
Yeah, and in terms of what Daniel was just saying with the people putting faces in their thumbnails because they heard that's a thing to do, there is data on that. However, that doesn't mean it's going to work with your audience, right? So all of the things that you see other YouTubers doing, that might work for that particular channel. That's something that you're going to have to test with your particular audience to see how your audience responds to it.
Yep. The best thumbnail for your channel is the one that gets your target audience to click, period. Yes. That's what you should be looking at. Don't worry about rules that you heard or some anecdotal evidence of something with a face doing slightly better than something without a face. Test your thumbnails, make sure that the messaging is clear, start winning the click, and you'll know that you've nailed the packaging with the title and the thumbnail, right? The next thing I want to talk about really quickly is, while we're talking about publishing, D, what would you say after packaging when it comes to publishing content, right? You got to make sure you put this stuff together, package it, and get it up onto the platform itself. What do you think about a simple thing like consistency? What does that even mean, and how does it apply to YouTube for us creators?
Consistency, or the lack of consistency, is huge. It's absolutely huge. And we're not just talking about, you've got to upload every 3 days or you got to upload once a week. The time in between uploads is equally important as well. A lot of people they're not uploading frequently enough. They're uploading, all the time we pull up channels and it's like they upload, once a month, or they might skip 2 or 3 months, and I get it. Life gets in the way. I've struggled with uploads this past year myself, so it does happen. But if you can, try to come up with some sort of a consistent schedule to continually be pumping out content if you can. And I think it can work the other way, depending on the type of traffic that you get. If you're uploading too much, I do believe in viewer fatigue. I know I've unsubscribed from channels that are just constantly hitting me with uploads, just constantly. I'm like, you know what? This is too much. I don't want all of this. So
yeah, that's a really fair point.
It's huge. Yeah.
One of the things I talk to creators about, I think sometimes creators think that consistency just means, I have to publish every Monday at 6:37 a.m. And that's how I publish.
Right.
I think of consistency more as the amount of time that you put in between your publishing. I don't necessarily think there's the perfect one day that if you dare publish on a different day, your channel won't perform. I think there's some days you find that will be overall better, or some times that you will find if you're trying to target a certain audience, if you're targeting a younger audience, and Dee and I have talked about this, and they're all in school while you're publishing, maybe you want to wait till they're out of school so that they'll be there to actually watch the content as it goes live. Right. But the thing that you want to think about is the space between videos. We say that in general, it's really hard, and there's exceptions to this rule, but it's really hard to grow a channel when you're waiting weeks and weeks in between uploads, unless it's like really, really high-end content that takes a lot of time to work out. Because there are exceptions.
Like Mark Rober, for example.
Yep.
Right.
Or if we were talking about Lucas the Spider, those take a long time to develop, even a 1-minute video because of all the animation. But in general, if you're making, the kind of content that that mostly is, fairly not easy to make, but you can get a video put together in a day or so and get it up and published, then what you want to think about is, try to see if you can get no more than maybe 7 or 8 days in between a video publishing. If you notice you've gone more than a week, you should really be thinking like, I got to figure out how to not have more than like 7 or 8 days pass before I publish another video. Because what it does is it starts feeding the AI. It starts feeding the platform. You're putting more content out. Your viewers start getting used to, every week I'm going to see a new video from this person. So they start getting recommended that new content as it drops. And the AI starts learning more about your channel as you build your catalog out, because you're creating more and more content. Every week there's a new video, it gets bigger and bigger, and you're actually building something that a viewer can get invested in, because there's more and more content that meets that viewer's needs. Now, another thing I want to talk about, when we talk about consistency, it's not just in terms of pacing and publishing, but consistency in the kind of things you make. Make sure that the way you produce, don't have stuff that's just sort of all over the place. When we really get focused, laser focused, trying to serve that target audience, make sure that the quality is consistent. Make sure it sounds good. Make sure it looks good. Make sure the packaging is good. So consistency applies not just to how often you're publishing, but being consistent about when you publish, the type of content you're publishing, how the quality of that content that you're putting on the platform, things like answering comments. Be consistent about spending a little time, and be consistent across the way you act as a creator, so that people will begin to become invested in you because they start understanding your patterns, how your channel works, right? I think that's a big point that sometimes people forget about.
It is, and it goes further than that, right? Because you hear a lot of people saying like, I don't have enough time for YouTube, this, that, and the other thing. Consistency behind the scenes is equally as important. Consistency in terms of when you shoot your videos, when you edit your videos, how you search for topics, like all of this stuff behind the scenes that happens, the more consistent you do those things, you turn those things into habits and they become a regular part of your life. And then all of a sudden YouTube doesn't become that difficult, and you find the time for YouTube because you've built these new habits through doing things consistently. And that is huge. Just in front of the camera, it's that consistent connection with the audience, right? Daniel touched on, consistently making the right type of content. But, what you're really doing is just consistently communicating to a particular viewer. And if you do that consistently, you'll eventually win.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And if you don't, keep following along, because we're going to talk about the other things that could be keeping you small.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some other things. So that's a pretty strong start with those 4 things alone. I think you're in pretty good shape of to get directed and focused into a lane and start making content. But what would be the next thing that you would, after people are like, I kind of got it, I've got messaging, I've got packaging, I think I've got the consistency worked out. Dee, what would you recommend to creators to say that they should think about on the platform, the simple mistakes they might be making or overlooking that could help them grow their channel more quickly?
Not taking advantage of all of the publishing features that YouTube gives us. Now, I know everybody's in a different place in their journey. Everyone has access to different features based on the size of your channel, but everyone does have access to a certain set of features. For example, if you're just starting today or you just started yesterday, you do have the ability to not only make long form content, but you can make YouTube shorts as well, right? Those are two features that you can use to help grow your channel. If you've got a larger channel and you're not taking advantage of the community feed, or you're not taking advantage of live streams or stories, you're missing out on features that can actually help you grow your channel. Anytime I go through a series where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get on top of stories for a while, and I start making a lot of stories, I'm always gaining a lot of subscribers through stories, always. And it's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, and things like your, once you get enough that you've hit the requirements, things like your community tab. I use my community tab all the time to speak to my community for things like this. Like today, here we are doing the show on the Tube Spanner YouTube channel. So the first thing I did was when we got the stream put together, I went over to my community tab and let my viewers know, hey, if you're interested, we'll be on the Tube Spanner channel today talking about the mistakes that might be keeping your channel small. So using that different functionality, communicating with your community, let them know what's going on in different aspects, because sometimes, like us, things happen on channels that aren't our our own, and we have to make sure that we're keeping in touch with the people who tell us afterwards, like, oh, I wish I'd known you were there. I would have come stop by and watched that,
Yeah.
So those things are really important.
Yeah, a lot of times I don't have time to watch people's videos, but those community feed posts always show up in my feed, right? So if there's something that's important and they want me to see it, it shows up there. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, I'll go check that out. If they're going live, I'll check that out. Or maybe they're running a poll. YouTube gives us all these different features, and again, you might not have access to all of these, but at the very least, you've got access to normal videos and you've got access to shorts. At the very least, very least.
Yeah, and things like we're doing right now, like live streams. If you've never tried live streaming, maybe that's something. And we're not saying that you have to use every single feature, right? YouTube is a high functioning platform with lots of options for different types of creators. But if there's different features out there that you haven't tried, if you haven't tried live streaming and you have the ability to do so, if you haven't tried making a short and you have the ability to do so, maybe test it out, see how it works, give it a whirl, see if it's something you can actually use to engage your community more frequently. Because maybe sometimes it's like, hey, if I do a short, it doesn't take quite as long to do it. I could probably put it up and publish something. If I happen to be like, wow, I haven't published anything in 6 or 7 days. I've got a video I'm working on, but it's still going to be another 4 days before I get around to finishing it. I know, maybe I can do a short. It's only under 60 seconds. It could be 15 seconds long, could be 10 seconds long, but maybe I can make something of value to drop something on my channel to connect with my community so they have something that they know I'm here, I'm active, and I'm putting up content. So really think about that. One of the things, this is the next thing that we thought is a mistake, and it ties right into this one. Understanding the different parts of YouTube that you can use, that you can leverage, that you may not be leveraging to connect with your community and connect with your target audience. One of the things we notice a lot is usually people, are missing some of the things that they could be utilizing, but a lot of times they're really hyper-focused on some of the wrong things. We have seen people get super focused on things like subscribers and views, like how do I get more views? How do I get more subscribers? But they're asking all the wrong questions, right? They're not really thinking about what's really important. They're looking at like the trophy numbers. I just want to see a lot of views. I want to see a lot of likes. I want to see a lot of subscribers. How do I do that? D, what are some things that small channels should be focusing on more instead of subscriber count or just view count alone?
Yeah, but before I get into that, I just want to say that that's probably one of the biggest mistakes so many creators on the platform make is they're focusing on all of the wrong things. I know everyone in here right now, you're either on Reddit or you're in Facebook groups or you're seeing something on Twitter, and you always see this. How can I get more subscribers? How can I grow faster? How can I get more watch time, right? How can I get more subscribers fast? You always see that, right? That's asking the wrong question. That's focusing on the wrong thing. So instead of saying, how do I get more subscribers? You should be asking yourself, how can I make a deeper connection with the viewers who are watching my content, right? If you want more subscribers, it starts with making that connection with the audience. But before you make the connection with the audience, you have to get them to click on your thumbnail, right? So let's go over and talk about your click-through rate for a second. Focus on your click-through rate because the entire thing starts there. Of course, you've got title and topic as well. But in terms of getting them into your video, it doesn't even start until they click on your thumbnail. So focus on your click-through rate on your thumbnail. YouTube gives us great data on this. They give us the impressions click-through rate. Not only tells us how many people or what percentage of the people click on our thumbnail, but by impressions, it tells us how many people they actually showed that thumbnail to in the first place. So focus everything on getting people to click. Now, if you're just getting started, you don't know how to do that yet. So study successful channels, look at their thumbnails, try to get an idea of what's making their thumbnails successful, and then try to emulate that and come up with your own style based on their success to try to get people to click in. And then once they click in, your next thing that you should focus on is getting people to watch your video as long as possible. Now, this is a hard part, especially starting out. A lot of people, if you're looking at your audience retention graph, you see a graph, and at the beginning, a lot of people see this huge drop at the beginning. I went through this for a very long time, and it took me quite a while to figure out how to get rid of that big drop at the beginning. And for me, and for my audience, I simply had to get into the video faster. I had to make my pacing faster. I had to cut out and trim all of the fat. So the video starts, I tell them exactly what they're going to get, and I get right into it. Like when I started doing that, instead of, hey, thanks for coming around. If this is your first time here, do this. Be sure to leave a comment, hit the subscribe button. And all. Like people were just, it was nosediving looking at that graph. As soon as I cut that stuff out, people started sticking around. So get them to watch your videos longer. And that's a lot of trial and error there. You're going to have to test a lot of things out, and that's what your audience retention report is for. The next thing to focus on is once you get them to watch your videos longer, get them to watch another piece of content. This is so powerful. Get them to watch another piece of content. You can use your card. You can use your end screen. You can use your pinned comments. You can use links in your description. You can use all of these tools to get people to click on another piece of content. That's so important, right? Because what happens is that tells YouTube that this viewer likes your content. That means that even if they are not subscribed, that there's a really good chance the next time they open up YouTube or the next time you publish a video, that your video is going to be sitting there waiting for them because YouTube knows that they like your content. And it doesn't matter if they're subscribed or not. This is a little test that you can do. Log out of YouTube, and you can even search YouTube without logging in if you want, and go watch 2 or 3 of Daniel's videos and then watch what YouTube does. YouTube notices that you like Daniel's videos, and even though you're not subscribed, it's going to start recommending more of Daniel's videos because you've watched more than one of his videos. So get them to click, get them to watch, and then get them to watch another piece of content. If you focus on those 3 things, put all of your energy on those 3 things, you won't have to worry about subscribers, you won't have to worry about views, you won't have to worry about watch time, because everything falls into place. Those are the 3 pieces of the puzzle that make everything work. Focus on those first.
Yeah, I think that you said a mouthful there.
I did.
Dave.
That was a lot.
That was no, but that was so
I need to hydrate.
That was so on point, because really what you're talking about here is a content strategy. I think sometimes people have a video strategy, like I'm going to make this video today, or next week I'm going to make that video. But sometimes they don't really think about, YouTube is a platform of prediction. If someone's actually watching the video that you put out today, that person's happy because they're getting satisfied from your content. You're happy because you're getting that watch time and the click, and they're actually watching your content. But all YouTube is thinking that entire time that viewer's watching is, what can I serve this viewer next to keep them watching? So you need to get in line with that, and you need to start thinking, does my content work together? Have I put things together into playlist and use all of the features that Dee was mentioning? Do I use things like the cards, the end screens, the pin comment, the link in the description above the fold, so that if someone's watching this one, I'm actively trying to get them to think about watching another related piece of content, that if they enjoyed this one, I built more content that would make sense because it's relevant and it's on point and it follows your value proposition, and the messaging is clear so that all the packaging looks great. So the minute it's sitting there as an end screen, they go, I want to watch that one. That makes a lot of sense. I watched this first one. That one looks like something I want to watch too. And you're actively trying to recommend more of your own content. Having a content strategy refers to all of the content you're putting on to your channel and putting it together in ways that even things like your playlist, I go to people's channels and their playlists look like supermarket aisles. I look at their playlist and it says popular uploads, newest stuff, books. Or I'm like, what is that? It's like walking through the supermarket where it's like rice, cereal, corn, vegetables. People want to be engaged with your content, so you have to treat those, even the playlist, the way you put those pieces of content together in a strategy, be thinking about what those playlists could be named, right? If you're putting content together, think about the playlist titles the same way you would your video titles. Make them engaging, make them compelling. Don't be afraid to use keywords that are important to that conversation. And don't be afraid to put playlist descriptions that can go farther than the title does to really get them to look and go, I get what this is. Look at all these videos. I want to watch this playlist.
Let me give an example there based on my own channel, and I don't have this particular setup, but this is just something that I'm just spitballing here. So if I have a video, how to live stream, or the best live streaming apps for iPhone. There's a video title, right? The best live streaming apps for iPhone. They're watching that video, and what I know is this. I know that they've got an iPhone and they're interested in live streaming. So what I'm going to do is take advantage of my card, take advantage of my end screen, pin comments, link it's in the description, everywhere I can, to recommend them another video that has to do with iPhones and probably live streaming. So I might make a second video that's the best live streaming accessories for iPhone. And then I'm going to link out all those places to go to that video. And maybe I'm going to have a third video, the best microphones for iPhone live streaming. And I'm going to link out to that video. And then when I have these videos all tied together, an interweb, then I'm going to create a playlist, how to live stream with an iPhone. And I'm going to put those videos together in a playlist. And the goal is to get people to binge watch my content. One video after the other video after the other video. And at that point, I don't care if they subscribe or not, right? Because they're watching content, multiple pieces of content. So there's a really good chance YouTube is going to continue to show them content when it's relevant and it's something that they're interested in. So I don't care if they subscribe or not.
Yeah, and that's such a huge thing, right? Because as we said earlier, YouTube is a platform of prediction. So these things, when you start thinking about the viewer and presenting them with content that may want to watch if they're already watching the video that you're on, what you're doing is not only satisfying the viewer with more content, but you're providing positive traffic data back to YouTube. So they go, hey, someone watched this first video and they went on to watch another one of D's video because D helped put his thumb on the scale of viewer behavior by pushing them towards it in a card, in an end screen, in a pinned comment, link in the description. YouTube starts recognizing those behaviors and starts going, people watch this video and they go on to watch this other video from D. I got an idea. Why don't we start recommending that second video alongside and suggested, and at the end of the video and the up next for this next viewer, and see if they click it as well. So you start influencing the entire behavior of the viewer and the behavior of YouTube to get the platform to start recommending your content more frequently. And that's how you start growing a channel quickly. Get them to watch multiple pieces of content and get that into their recent watch history. That'll show up more of your content for those viewers in browse, and it'll help YouTube better understand what viewers with similar viewing behaviors might be interested in, because YouTube really wants to understand the viewer and what videos to serve to them. They're not trying to bring viewers to your video. They're trying to understand the viewer, figure out what videos they like, and then go through the pile of the highest performing, most relevant content that they think would connect with this viewer and present it to them. So try to make sure that your content does that, performs well, and it's relevant to that person's needs, what their interests are. That's where you start talking about a content strategy. Super powerful.
Now, before we move on to the next one, I want to circle back around because I did read some things in the chat. So when I was talking earlier about what I had to do on my channel to get that drop, for my audience retention to not drop so far, I didn't mean that you can't ask people to subscribe or you can't ask those things. I just mean for my channel, I needed to eliminate that stuff in order to get people, because they're there. Most people are watching. I think like 80-something% of the people are watching on their phone on my channel. They're there for they're there for a tutorial. They're not there to hear me talk about anything else, the majority of the people. But by all means, test this stuff on your channel. This is what worked on my channel. I have tested going back and forth between putting a little subscribe icon on there so I don't verbally say something, I just visually say something. That can work as well too. But test all of this stuff with your audience. Like, this is what worked for me.
Yeah, and always lead with the value, right? Like, we've been streaming for a while now. So if I said to you, hey, if anything we've said today has provided value for you, think about hitting the subscribe button on the Tube Spanner channel so that you'll be notified next time we go live again. That integrates, we led with the value. It's not any big thing to ask quickly, drop it in there. And if you want to subscribe, that's great. If you choose not to, that's fine. We appreciate the view. But being proactive and thinking about value first, and then the other things second, is really important. When you always get right to the value, that hockey stick like Dee was talking about, when you get that retention report that's like, man, everyone leaves quickly. Right. Typically that's because you spent too long getting to the thing that the viewer expected when they clicked on the thumbnail in the title. They went, I think this video is about this. They quickly look and go, he's wasting my time. He's not there. I'm not hearing it. And they leave. So you want to make sure you get right to the thing, get right to the promise of the thumbnail and the title.
How many people, say yes if this happens to you in the chat right now, how many people have viewers come into your comments and leave a timestamp of when the video actually starts? If this happens to your channel, say yes in the chat, where you have somebody leave a comment and they drop a timestamp to let everybody else know this is when the video starts. Now, I hate when they do that, and I actually get rid of that because I think it's rude. But as a creator, I realize that I'm taking too long to get to my content, because if people have to drop timestamps to let others know when I actually get into the meat of the video, then I'm taking too long to get into it. And also to talk about what Daniel mentioned about leading with value first. If you are going to ask people verbally to subscribe to your channel, Don't just say subscribe to my channel. Give them a reason, lead with value. So, if my channel is about helping mobile content creators succeed on YouTube and I'm making a video on how to live stream with your iPhone, right? I might lead with, if you want to learn even more about live streaming with your iPhone, be sure to hit the subscribe button, followed by the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I led with value. I told them what they're going to get if they subscribe to my channel. So always lead with value.
That's fantastic.
That makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Huge difference.
Mr. Nick Nimmin in the chat. Good to see you, Nick.
Hey, bro.
So, one of the things we talk about there when we're talking about that content strategy and asking people to do things, do you think that engagement, when we talk about engagement, that's where we're at, right? Engagement is such a wide, like asking people to subscribe. Are there other forms of engagement that we should be cautious or be aware of or try to utilize to help grow our small channel, D?
I think engagement in general is just a key to cultivating a community. Right. In terms of overall engagement, I don't think it's going to change. I don't think it's going to move the needle in terms of a video growth or like, wow, I got a lot of comments so this video went viral. It's not going to work that way. But in terms of cultivating a community, creating conversations with people who like your content, who like you as a creator, that is super important to get people to come back. And you can actually build friendships this way. And I know a lot of you have already done this. I know there's a lot of established and successful creators in the chat right now. So you know exactly what I'm talking about, the power of conversation, the power of speaking to your community and building up that community. So engage with people. If someone takes time out of their day to leave you a comment, especially a thoughtful comment. I'm not talking about somebody who just says first or just says, thanks or something like that. But still, give them a heart, right? But if somebody goes out of their way to leave you an actual comment, when you can, reply to that comment. Reply to people.
Yeah,
it's the human thing to do. It's the human thing to do.
Well, some people would argue that I'm not the most human in the world, but I will say this, that engagement is important in not only just with building the community. I would add this other layer. Another layer.
Inception. We're going
Inception. It's very
style.
deep. We're going down the rabbit hole here.
Three dreams deep. Let's go.
Every time a viewer engages with your content, if they watch a video, if they engage, they come back and leave another reply to a comment. They left a comment, you replied, and they came back to give another reply to your reply. These are all engagements where those viewers are interacting with your channel. And every small interaction, if they choose to hit the subscribe button, if they do choose to like it, maybe they share your video, they left a comment, they went back and watched another video after the one they were watching, or left an additional comment after their first one. These are all things that YouTube are using as markers to understand viewer behavior. So if you can get people to really enjoy your content and engage with it, engage with that content, YouTube better understands the kinds of viewers that it should be recommending that content to in the future, because that is, again, prediction. YouTube is a platform of prediction, and it's always trying to understand not only the viewer that's here today, but what other viewers who might have similar viewing habits that they could potentially recommend this content to, right? Trying to make those matches. So engagement overall, not a specific like, not a specific comment. Each little thing might not have the most value in the world, but when you get people that are coming, liking, commenting, subscribing, they're sharing your content, they're going on and watching another video, they're interacting with your community posts, they're watching your stories, your shorts, and your regular content, and showing up in your live stream, and they're commenting in the chat of the live stream. These are all forms of engagement, and they are super powerful when you leverage them all together.
I love how you touched on the prediction side of YouTube, right? Because that's that. In a nutshell, that's what YouTube is. YouTube gathers data from our content. YouTube gathers user data for the viewers. And then based on all of that data, YouTube is trying to find videos for the viewer, right? YouTube's not trying to find viewers for your videos. YouTube is trying to find videos for the viewer. So the more you can get them to do things on your channel, watch more videos, leave a comment, engage, and if you have community posts, get them to answer a poll, get them to interact in any way, shape, or form. That's more user data that YouTube has connecting that viewer to your channel, and all that increases the likelihood that YouTube is going to continue to show them more of their content, even if they're not subscribed, or even if they are subscribed. And how many people are subscribed to a channel and you don't get notifications when they upload? There's a good reason for that. Probably because you've skipped a couple of their last videos, or you didn't interact with their channel in a while. Then they uploaded and you weren't notified, even though you're subscribed, because YouTube says, okay, this person, even though they're subscribed, they're not interacting with this channel anymore. So guess what? Guess what? You're not getting a notification.
Yeah,
right. Comes down to engagement in that aspect.
And that really is something that's important when you talk about that. Like, I think sometimes people get so wrapped up in little things like, oh, like I don't think my viewers or my subscribers are being notified. And it's a notifications problem, and some things YouTube's not doing the right thing. And boy, I tell you, those little things that you can get distracted by when we talked earlier about focusing on the wrong things, man, if you just focus on connecting with your audience, that's going to be so much more powerful. Connecting with the target audience you're trying to reach, defining them, getting your messaging clear, getting your packaging right, and then connecting consistently with that audience week after week after week. Boy, that's when it becomes powerful. And when I say week after week after week, D, is that an important part? Is that a mistake that we see creators make?
For what about week after week?
Time. Is time important? Is time
That was the
something?
segue that I missed.
There we go. Hold on. Wait a second. D, let me ask you a question, pal. Week after week after week, is that something that becomes important to a creator?
Yes.
Why is that?
That leads us right to the next thing. This is the thing that's keeping your channel small, is that, one, you haven't spent enough time on the platform yet. You haven't spent enough time focusing on becoming a better communicator, becoming a better video editor, learning how to make your audio sound better, learning how to make your video look better, learning how to choose the right topics, learning how to create thumbnails that actually get clicked, learning how to get people to watch one piece of content and go on to watch another piece of content. Like, these are skills that people don't have generally. There are unicorns out there, but generally people don't have these skills when they first start on YouTube. These are things that we develop over time, through repetition, through consistency, right? Consistently communicating with an audience, figuring out what gets their audience to respond, what type of thumbnails get them to click, what type of videos get them to watch, what type of videos get them to watch another piece of content, how to put a content strategy together to where it makes sense for people just to binge watch your stuff, right? And to make your channel a destination for something. Like, this takes time. So if you're just starting on a platform and you haven't been on here for a while, you're looking at this huge mountain and you're like, wow, how do I get these subscribers, right? Going right back to you're focusing on the wrong things. Slow down, focus on the things that we talked about earlier, and understand that this takes time. Now, some people are naturally gifted. Some people get in front of a camera and they're just off and running out of the gate. They just have natural abilities. But for the rest of us mere mortals, especially for guys like Daniel and myself.
Stop it. Come on. You're gifted. You are gifted, my friend.
We're in the trenches. You know what I mean? Like, this stuff takes time, a lot of time. For everybody in the chat right now, and I see Paul Peck in here. I see Heidi's in here from Costume Co. I see Nick Niman in here. I see a lot of people in here. Tish, like, for those of you who are seeing some success on YouTube, how long did it take you before you started seeing some level of success? Go ahead and let me know in the chat right now, because I guarantee you didn't knock it out of the park with your first video, right? This is something that took a while to develop your style, to develop your editing style, to develop how you do all of the things on your channel to consistently speak with your audience. So just know it takes a while.
So that's so important, and we see that. I have a lot of times I'll have creators come when they go, I'm doing everything you said. I've been making the thumbnails. I think I got my messaging right. I got my packaging right. I've been trying to make playlists. I got the titles good. I've been doing the research. I've been doing everything. Everything looks good. And I don't seem to be getting where I want to be. I'll go look at their channel and they got 15 videos up.
Right.
I'm like, what? Yeah, look at the responses in the chat. 9 months, years, says Heidi. It just to start to get something going. Nick says it took him 5 months to get his first 150 subscribers. Think about that. 5 months to get, and Nick's a guy who's like, he's rapidly approaching 1 million subscribers, but it took him 5 months just to get the first 150. And it's one of those things, you got to take the time to develop the things you do, because we get better. We're like wine. We get better with age. We need to learn to improve over time, and we need to learn to build our catalog, because that's another thing. if you only have a handful of videos, and a handful to me is under 100, if you don't have a lot of content on your channel, listen, there's only so much of your content that can be recommended out, right? If you are a farmer and you go like, I'm working all day in the fields, I've been planting corn.
I put 15 seeds in the field.
I put 15 stalks of corn out there. Can't wait for harvest time, right? It's like, exactly, right? Perfect example, D. Like, you've got to produce more. You've got to build more, because each thing is going to start trickling in returns, start trickling in in views. They're going to start trickling in people like that video and they chose to subscribe or they chose to comment or engage. Each one of these pieces of content that you develop in that content strategy creates something that's much bigger as a whole than just the sum of its parts. Your channel becomes a catalog, a library that serves that value proposition, and people go, oh, look at this channel. Look at all the stuff they have here. Look how well it's laid out, how clear the messaging is. I'm hitting the subscribe button. I want to make sure I earmark this site because I want to come back tomorrow to watch more of it.
You know, I would say 8 out of 10 people who approach me and say the exact same thing. I'm doing all this stuff. I follow everyone that I'm supposed to follow. I've gone through the YouTube Creator Academy. I've done all of the things that I'm supposed to do, but my channel's still not growing. And I look at their channel, and like you said, they've got just a handful of videos. So they've been doing it for like 3 months or 2 months, and they might have 20 videos or something like that. But for those other 2 out of 10, right? Sometimes they do have a lot of content out there. Sometimes they are doing all of the things that they are supposed to do, but they're missing out on one important aspect, and that's going to lead us right to the next one, and that's you have to learn how to evaluate what's happening on your channel and make adjustments based on the data that YouTube gives us. So you could be doing all of the things, right? All of the best practices. My thumbnails, I think my thumbnails, they should look good. In my video, I don't know why I'm putting in all this work. I've got all these lights and this expensive camera, and I'm doing all of this stuff that you guys are saying. Everything's linked together, but it's just not working. But you're failing to go into your data to dig in and figure out, okay, well, even though I'm doing it, it doesn't mean that it's actually working. So you got to look at your click-through rate. You got to look at your average view duration, your audience retention. You have to look at all of this information. Where's your traffic coming from? And you have to look at this and say, okay, well, this isn't what I thought it was. And you have to learn how to adjust that so you can accommodate your actual audience, right? You can put in all the work in the world, but if the data tells you something else and you are just deaf to that data, you're not going to grow. And this could be something that's keeping your channel small.
Oh, that's such huge advice right there. That's so true. I know more people who sit there and they just keep doing the same thing over and over, not getting the results they want, but expecting somehow tomorrow magic will happen. And I'm all in favor of being patient and working and building out your catalog. But when you've made 200 or 300 videos and you're struggling to break 1,000 subscribers and you can't seem to drive views and you're not really winning the click, that's the point where you have to say, hold on a second. One of the biggest mistakes in this evaluate and adjust idea, I see so many creators who have a mentality that I define as just because that's the way you do it doesn't mean that's how it's done. Creators start going, that's how I make my thumbnails. That's how I do my titles. That's how I build my playlist. That's how I always do it. I don't know why people aren't clicking. Well, guess what? Just because that's how you do it doesn't mean that's how you should be doing it or how it's done. Change it up. Test thumbnails, try something different. Try to be more compelling in your titles. Try to make something that's a little more pop, a little more pizzazz. If you're putting up videos and they're only driving 50 views in the first week and they die out, then it's not connecting properly with the target audience you're trying to reach. So there's only a few things in there that could potentially be stopping that stuff from connecting, going back to the packaging and the messaging. Those 4 big T's. We talk about topic, title, thumbnail, and time. Right? If you've worked all those things through and people still aren't clicking, then one of those T's isn't working and you got to try something different. Try a different topic. Maybe try changing your titles. Maybe try reworking those thumbnails. And if you just put it up and you're a brand new channel and you haven't given it time, maybe you need to give it a little time, because some videos when you're a smaller channel, it takes time for that video to be served out so that YouTube can gather enough data so that it knows the right audience to serve it to, and then it will start. You'll see videos. I've had videos that I put out there that were kind of slow at the beginning, and then they'll pop, like 6 months later. Because
that's most of my videos. That's most of my videos. Yeah.
So there's a time factor in there too. But if you're, 2-3 years into making content, and every week you publish, and you've got hundreds of videos up, and they go up, they hit about 80 views, and then they stop, and you can't break that threshold, you need to stop, and you need to evaluate and go, what can I be doing different or better? And then make some adjustments, and then look at your data. One of the biggest things that I see creators miss out on, go to your videos tab of your channel and reorder the videos in terms of most popular and start looking for patterns in there. Look at the types of videos that seem to drive a few more views than the ones that don't. What's similar? What are the topics? What are the ways you made those titles? Were they a certain length? Were they shorter? Were they a little longer? What did you do in those videos when you start looking at the retention reports of the ones that perform better? Was there something different in the structure of the content? What was it that made that video drive twice as many views as one of your other videos? Did you leverage a trending topic or a tentpole event that was happening that happened to be hot at that time? Understanding these different things so that you can evaluate and adjust, and then make sure the things that connect on your channel, do more of those things. The things that don't connect, do fewer of those things. And that's the way that you can pivot and start understanding the data and leveraging that data to grow your channel more rapidly. What do you think, Dave?
100% on board with that one. And one of the things that I know Daniel has seen this, and I know Nick has seen that if he's still in the chat, where you go to someone's channel and you sort by most popular. And let's say they have a channel about cooking cakes, as Nick likes to do. You have a cake cooking channel, and you sort by most popular. And the most popular video is rebuilding a carburetor.
Right.
Has nothing to do with cooking cakes. And you're like, well, okay, well, this video. And the funny thing is when you see this, those types of videos are they're dominating the other videos. These channels, some of the videos are struggling with a couple hundred views, and you have, how to build a carburetor, and you might have 15,000 or 40,000 views on it. And you're like, I'm not growing. You're cultivating an audience who came in because of your carburetor video, and now you're trying to serve them cakes, right? How to cook cakes, and they're just not interested in that. So all of this confusion, all these things that you're doing with YouTube, right? It's not in alignment with your value proposition. So this is a painful thing to do. And I know Pixel P, if she's still in here, she recently did this. If you have content that's bringing in the wrong audience, but it's getting views, you're ripping off the Band-Aid here, but unlist those videos. It is going to hurt. You are going to lose those views. It's going to be painful. But long term, what you're doing is you're streamlining your channel and making it more aerodynamic, right? Anytime you have these videos that are just hanging off the edge, you're creating drag for your channel. You're bringing in the wrong audience, and they're just not interested in what your value proposition is. So once you do come up with a value proposition, go through and audit your channel. Is this video in alignment with my value proposition? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, keep it. If the answer is no, I would unlist it.
Yeah. It's so true, though, because creators will make that one video that has nothing to do with the rest of the content or value prop in their channel, but they have that attitude like, but that video drives a lot of views. I can't just unlist it. I need that. Because they become so personally attached to the content. You have to really become personally attached to the data. That's what you need to understand. You have to understand that the reason those videos are problematic, if you've got one video on your channel that has nothing to do with the rest of your content and it drives a lot of views, YouTube goes, oh, cool, this channel makes carburetor videos, and then goes over, you said the cooking cakes channel that has the one carburetor video. Then it serves that person who watched the carburetor video, the new how to make a birthday cake, how to cook a birthday cake. Serves them that video.
That's how you do it.
And then all of a sudden, that person doesn't click. They go, I don't care anything about cooking birthday cakes. I care about the carburetor thing. You got another carburetor or how to fix this, another part on this car? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm working on my car. They don't click, and YouTube goes, I guess they didn't like this video. And it could have been the greatest video in the world. It was fragmenting the audience. You were serving two different audiences, not staying true to that very value proposition. The very first thing that Dee and I talked about, defining what your channel's about, who the target audience is, and why they would watch your channel. Do not fragment your audience, or you're going to struggle for growth. the entire lifespan of your channel. Once you can start really getting into a lane and defining that value proposition and make sure that anything that you do that starts to not really do what you needed to do, look at it, take a peek, adjust, make adjustments and go, boy, it really hurts to unlist this video because it's got more views than anything. It's like my baby. But we got to put baby in a corner. I'm sorry, you got to go in a corner, baby. that's
you got to put the baby
aside.
in. You got to tuck it in, put it to bed.
Yeah, that's what it is. So listen, those are the steps. Those are the 10 steps that we went through. Value prop. Define your value prop. 2, get your messaging straight. Number 3, get the packaging in order. The title, the topic, the thumbnail. Number 4, be consistent. Consistency is king. Number 5, leverage all of the different publishing features that YouTube has to offer to help grow your channel more rapidly. Number 6, your focus. Are you focused on the right things instead of the wrong things? Don't keep staring at your subscriber count and going, please go up, and throwing fertilizer at it, expecting magic to happen. Make sure you're focused on the other things. Number 7, have a content strategy. Make sure that your content works together, not individual pockets of videos. Make sure that you're building something bigger that's bigger than the sum of its parts, something that's as a whole actually works together to serve the needs of that viewer. Engagement, try to make sure that your content is connecting with the viewer in every way possible so that they come back, they watch, they leave comments, they share, they subscribe, they like, they come back in and they'll start reacting to your community tab posts, they'll watch your shorts, they'll show up at your lives, they'll be in your live chat, they'll talk to you in the live chat. Use all of those things and engage with the viewer. And time, give it time. Please don't put 12 videos up, 15, 30 videos up and go, I don't know what's happening. I don't know why this isn't working. It takes time. And the thing we just talked about, number 10, evaluate and adjust. And I promise you, if you take these 10 steps seriously and look at your channel and make sure you're doing all of them, your small channel will grow.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. D, I gotta say, it's been great being back and having a show again. I feel like the band got back together.
The band got back together. Nick actually said in the chat that we're like a traveling road show.
We are. Well, circus, freak show, road show, whatever it is. I hear you. I know what he means, but we're a little scary.
Yeah. No, I think this is a great list. I'm glad we're streaming again. This is going to be a regular thing here on the Tube Spanner YouTube channel. So make sure you are subscribed. If you're not subscribed already, to make sure that you get notified when we both go live. And because you've been hanging out in the chat, and because you're going to give this a like, I know you're going to give this a like because that's going to increase the likelihood that you do get that notification when we go live again. And I think this has been a great list. This is kind of like the 10 commandments of how to not keep your channel small. And that's what we should have. We should have ran with that with a thumbnail.
The commandments. We really should.
Like the rock tablets.
I look horrible in a robe, though, So listen, hey, and make sure, thank you very much for Tube Spanner for having us here. Down in the description of this, you will see where you can actually sign up for Tube Spanner Online. Go ahead and sign up your free account and start playing around with some of the tools. We're going to be talking about them a lot more as the official launch comes out, and you'll be really excited about some of the things that this tool can do. So get ahead of the curve, get down there, sign up, and we'll be talking about it more in the future. D, it's been a pleasure. I hope we can continue our wonderful streak here of making this show the behemoth that I expect it to be. Is that
yes, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Mr. Bittel.
All right, everyone. Thank you for showing up. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Thanks for all of the engagement, and we will see you next time.
Daniel.